Well, it's not quite springtime here in the Rockies, technically, even though it feels like it. So, had a project I've been wanting to work on for a little while, upgrade to the home lab. Basically, what's ended up happening is the ESXi hypervisor that I built to basically work in a lab environment has become my production machine. I'm currently running 7 VMs on it. 5 of those are for myself, media servers and some other clients, and the other 2 are for the company I work for. Basically what we want to do here is I want to add a couple physical ESXi hosts to the rack so that I can play with some stuff like vMotion. We wanted to play with some of the vSAN technology, integrating that with my Synology. So what I ended up doing was taking some old hardware I had laying around and basically building an ITX form factor box that I can use as one of my physical hypervisors. And basically, if this all goes well, which so far it has, I'm going to build another one to be the second part of the cluster. So what we have in this guy at the moment is bought a really cheap AMD socket AM1 ITX motherboard and a Sempron processor, and then I'm using this neat drive caddy here, which basically fits into a slim optical drive bay, but at the moment it's holding a 120 gig SSD for me to basically park my VMs on. Very low power machine. I think the TDP on the processor is like 25 watts. I'm running a 350 watt power supply with it. It's more than enough power, but that's basically what I had. You know, the motherboard and the chip, the total price was about 70 bucks. I had the SSD and everything else already. I've got 16 gigs of ballistics RAM in there right now. This RAM is rated at 1866, and the motherboard only does 1600, so it's being downclocked. But really, all I want here is the capacity, the RAM capacity. So I have 16 gigs in this rig, and I'll take the other 16 and hopefully put that into the other part of the ESXi cluster. So far, I've got ESXi installed on it without a hitch. I've got one server 2012 VM currently running on it. Haven't had any problems so far. I did put a dual Intel NIC card in the PCI slot. This motherboard has a Realtek NIC on it. I'm pretty sure I can get that working. I'm not even sure. It could be working at the moment, but I decided just to plug into the one of the Intel NICs, just to keep it simple on this first run. So what we're going to end up doing is coming back to the rack here. I'm going to pull the ARIS modem that I have from Comcast out of here, and that's where that ESXi host we were just looking at is going to live, next to the HD Home Run TV tuner. I'm going to start really using this HDMI switcher quite a bit more. I'm going to have all the physical ESXi hosts as well as my pfSense router all tied into that, and I'll show you kind of how I'm approaching that, using a HDMI bail-in to then take the output from the HDMI switcher and send it to a monitor, so I can easily switch between the splash screens of all that different hardware. I'm also going to use a couple of those HDMI ports for some of the Raspberry Pi stuff I'm doing, which I'll also show you here probably in the next video. So we're going to get rid of the ARIS, put that machine in there, And then the second one's going to live next to the Synology on top here. I'm going to start really using this Dell switch down here. I've got, at the moment, 12 ports on their own VLAN, which is where everything will be tied into as far as the this new ESXi lab. I'm going to use one of the network connections from the Synology and also go into that VLAN for some vSAN stuff, hopefully. So that's where we're at the moment. I'm going to turn some things off, move some things around, and I'll follow up with a video when it's all done.